What happens when a respected black music teacher helps an elderly woman at a bus stop, only to end up in cuffs an hour later, facing a judge who won't even look him in the eye? You won't believe what a teenager's shaky cell phone video revealed. What happened next turned the entire justice system upside down. You ever do something good, like genuinely good, and somehow end up paying the price for it? Yeah, that's me. That's how my Friday started. Sweet little girl, disabled, pushing her walker across the hallway of the community center. She looked up at me, eyes shining, and said, "Mr. Brooks, you promised you'd be there for my solo." I'm a man of my word. My name's Evan Brooks. I teach music, piano mostly, blues, jazz, a little gospel if I'm feeling righteous. I'm not some flashy big-time player, just a regular brother trying to keep kids off the streets and put some purpose in their hands. Black and white keys, not street corners and cold stares. So there I was, 8:07 a.m., in my gray slacks, buttoned down, and my lucky leather shoes. The ones with the worn-out heel but the perfect pedal grip, headed to the middle school concert. Had my keyboard in one hand, sheet music in the other, and a lunchbox tucked under my arm because, yes, grown men pack their own turkey sandwiches. I get to the bus stop. An elderly lady is struggling to keep her balance, nearly dropped her hearing aid right into the gutter. I ain't the kind of man who just watches that. So I bend down, pick it up, dust it off like it's crystal, and help her put it back. She smiled like I'd handed her the moon. "Bless you, son," she whispered. That's when I noticed the cruiser roll up. 2 officers. One white, one trying hard not to be obvious about watching me. You know that look. Not, "Hey, good morning." Not even, "We're just patrolling." More like, "This looks too clean. Let's go dig." The white one, Officer Harper, stepped out like he owned the sidewalk. "Hey, that's your bag." Now look, I'm holding a keyboard, a folder with sheet music, and a lunch. What else could I be carrying? A helicopter? "Yes, sir. That's mine. Mind if I take a look?" Now here's the thing. If you say no, they say you're hiding something. If you say yes, you get to watch them go through your stuff like it's a yard sale. I sighed and handed it over. 10 seconds. That's all it took. 10 seconds for the other one, Jenkins, to pull out a strange little envelope. It wasn't mine. I'd never seen it before. But now it was sitting in his glove like a game piece, and he was staring at me like he just won. "There's something you want to tell us?" "Tell you what?" I asked. I looked at that envelope like it had come from another dimension. Inside it, cash, card with no name, and some mystery powder in a tiny plastic pouch. And before you even go there, no, I ain't ever touched anything like that in my life. Not even once. I laughed. Yeah, I laughed. That weird kind of laugh that happens when your world starts cracking down the middle. "That ain't mine, monsieur," I said. "I don't even know what that is." Harper looked at Jenkins. Jenkins looked at Harper. "Put your hands behind your back." "Wait, what?" "Sir, do not resist." And that was it, just like that, in front of kids, in front of parents, in front of the same woman I had just helped. I was pressed against a police car like a scene on the evening news, hands cuffed, instruments on the ground like trash. They didn't care that I was going to a concert, didn't ask why I had sheet music with my name on it, didn't bother to ask the elderly woman what she saw. They had their story, and I was the headline. You ever feel that burn in your chest? That slow, growing heat when you realize something's not just unfair. It's been rehearsed, like this whole thing was on script, like I'd been cast without my consent. They took me in, no explanations, no chance to call anyone. I sat in that holding cell with the sound of my own heartbeat drowning out the buzz of the fluorescent light above me. Somewhere out there, Kaylee was sitting at a piano, waiting for me. Somewhere out there, folks were already whispering, "Another one. Should have known." And me? I was sitting in a box, wondering what the hell just happened, and why doing something kind put a target on my back. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how this unfolds. Stay with me. You ever walk into a room and feel like the ending's already been written for you? Like you're just there to play your part, stand, nod, lose. That's how it felt walking into courtroom 4C the next morning. Orange jumpsuit, wrist cuffed so tight I couldn't even scratch my chin. I looked around, and let me tell you, I wasn't looking at a courtroom. It felt more like a theater. Only problem was, I was the main act, and everybody already bought tickets to the tragedy. They sat me down. My defense attorney, bless his underpaid heart, introduced himself to me 5 minutes before the judge walked in. Said his name was Mr. Darrell Mims. He looked like he hadn't had a good night's sleep since 1998. He leaned over and whispered, "We're going to try to push for a delay, build a better case." I nodded, but I knew what he meant was, "We're drowning," and I brought a teaspoon. Then he walked to the podium, and the prosecutor, sharp suit, slick hair, clipboard full of assumptions, cleared his throat like he was about to recite the gospel. "Your Honor, the defendant was found in possession of unmarked currency and suspicious material linked to street-level activity. Furthermore, we've uncovered prior interactions with law enforcement, suggesting a pattern of behavior." "A pattern of what, sir? You mean the parking ticket I got 3 years ago for being 12 minutes late? Or that time I asked an officer why he searched my car without cause and got detained for obstructing? Funny how standing still turns into a pattern when your skin ain't the right shade." Now let's talk about Judge Thomas R. Reeves. White hair, jaw clenched like someone just told him jazz still exists. Sat there on his elevated bench like he was deciding whether to cut taxes or cut someone's future. He didn't even look at me when I stood. Didn't look, not once. He looked at my name, my file, maybe even my shoes, but not me, because seeing me would mean seeing the whole mess this country still likes to pretend it cleaned up. My attorney asked for a 30-day delay. Judge Reeves grunted. "Denied. Prosecution's evidence is sufficient. Let's proceed." The whole thing went downhill faster than a runaway truck. He allowed the officers to speak, and they delivered their lines like it was opening night on Broadway. Calm, composed, rehearsed. Officer Harper described my reaction as nervous and evasive. Yeah, you cuff a man with no warning, and he doesn't act like it's a picnic? Shocking. Officer Jenkins said I voluntarily handed over the bag, which is true, but he left out the part where they made sure I felt like I had no other option. I turned to look at the back of the courtroom, and I caught a glimpse of someone. My mother. She must have driven through the night, wore her Sunday hat, tears just quietly falling, one by one, like little drops of dignity being stripped away. I wanted to speak. I did. I stood just once and said, "Your Honor, if I could just explain—" "Sit down," Judge Reeves snapped. "This isn't open mic night." And just like that, my voice, gone. Just a background sound in a story that wasn't mine anymore. Then it happened. Judge Reeves leaned forward, laced his fingers, and said, "Given the evidence and the lack of credible defense, I sentence the defendant to 60 years in state prison." 60 years, not 6, not 16, 60. My knees didn't buckle, but my spirit sure did. The courtroom didn't gasp. There were no protests, just silence. That kind of silence where you can hear the weight of the system pressing on your chest. My lawyer whispered, "We'll appeal." I whispered back, "With what?" A paperclip and a prayer. They dragged me out, and the last thing I saw was my mother. Not crying anymore, just staring, like she was watching her son vanish into something she'd always feared, but never thought she'd have to face again. This is it. We're staring the system dead in the face now. Everything you felt building, the injustice, the weight, the fury, it's all about to boil over. Stay close. What happens next? You won't believe it. They say silence can be louder than a gunshot. Let me tell you something. The ride back to county jail after getting 60 years, that's a silence I'll never forget. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in that van, wrists aching, shoes too tight, wondering how many other brothers sat in this same seat thinking, this ain't how my story was supposed to go. By the time we pulled into that cold gray building, I had stopped trying to make sense of anything. They put me in holding again. But this time something felt different. The officer at intake looked me square in the eye, then glanced at a screen behind him. His eyebrows twitched. You, got a lawyer named Daryl Mims? He asked quiet-like. Yeah, I said. What about it? He didn't answer, just said, hold tight. I'd heard that one before. Hold tight. That's what they always say right before they forget about you. But this time, hold tight meant the ground was already shaking. See, while I was sitting in that cell with nothing but a ticking clock and walls the color of wet cardboard, the outside world had finally started paying attention. Remember that teenager at the bus stop? Jamal, the one who'd recorded my arrest on his phone? Turns out he posted that video to social media. No fancy editing, no filter, just real-time footage of me helping an elderly woman, followed by two officers walking up and flipping my life upside down like it was routine. The post didn't blow up at first, but then it landed on the feed of a local podcast host, the kind who don't trust the evening news and do their own digging. He saw it. He shared it. Then people started watching and asking questions. Why was there no search warrant? Why didn't they question the woman I helped? Why did the judge rush sentencing without proper defense? But the real kicker? One retired officer, used to work with Harper and Jenkins, saw the footage and called a reporter anonymously. Said, look, I'm not going to say too much, but that bag wasn't his, and they knew it. Said it plain. Said it like he'd been waiting years to get that weight off his chest. By sunrise, the story had already hit regional outlets. Headlines like, local music teacher wrongfully sentenced, footage contradicts official report, and when my mama saw that news rolling in, she didn't wait. She pulled out her worn leather Bible, put on her best coat, and marched right into the city courthouse. This time, she wasn't whispering. That same morning, the state's Justice Review Board, under pressure from a now viral campaign called Number Free Evan, opened a fast-track inquiry. That's right, overnight from forgotten to front page. And guess what else surfaced? Judge Reeves had a decade-long record of disproportionately sentencing black men to max time, especially in nonviolent cases. An independent watchdog group had flagged him 2 years prior, but the case went nowhere. But now, with eyes on him, he couldn't hide behind that robe. They pulled up his numbers. The data didn't lie. 93% of black defendants? Max time. White defendants for the same charges. Probation, rehab, community service. Meanwhile, Harper and Jenkins? Turns out there were already internal complaints about them. Buried, delayed, under review. But now they weren't buried. They were headlines. By noon, I was called out of holding. A young, nervous assistant DA stood there with shaking hands and a clipboard. Mr. Brooks, your case is being reviewed. You'll be released pending further investigation. I just stared at him. You sure? 60 years was kind of firm yesterday. He didn't laugh, but I did. Loud. Too loud. Because if I didn't laugh, I might have collapsed. That afternoon, I walked out of that jail into a storm of cameras, protest signs, people chanting my name like I was somebody worth chanting for. And let me tell you, I didn't feel free. I felt stolen from. But I also felt something else. Ready. I stood in front of those microphones and said the only thing I could. I didn't beat the system. I survived it. Barely. But if my voice can keep one more brother from sitting where I sat, then I'm going to use it every chance I get. Judge Reeves was suspended pending investigation. Harper and Jenkins were put on administrative leave. A full review of every case that judge ever touched was ordered. And me? I went home. I sat at my piano, same one I'd taught 100 kids on, put my hands on the keys, and they shook. But I played anyway. That's the end of this story, but not the end of the fight. Because the truth, it don't always knock loud, but when it shows up, it doesn't leave empty-handed.